Audible.
Okay. Welcome everyone. First of all, I would like to say we are very sorry and we are ashamed to have next Nirbhaya who died yesterday. So I would like to request all of you to pay 1 minute condolences for the lady.
लोगों को पता उस लड़की की कंप्लेन रजिस्टर नहीं करी थी उससे रह गई और उसकी उसकी डेड बॉडी थी
Thank you everyone. And now that's you might be seeing that was also an example of patriarchy or gender involvement is there. So I started with that note. Now I would like to welcome all of you to the third session of webinar series, that is gender and nursing, and that is trends, issues and challenges. Today's topic is precarity of nurses in private hospitals, some critical observations. We have earlier series, webinar series also. First was the session 1 was emergence of male nurses in nursing education, a case study that was done by Professor Dr. S. Annie Grace Kalamati. So she has very wonderfully explained the emergence of male nurses. I was also thinking like male nurses have come later only. But after that presentation, I got to know that first male nurse was in 1921. So she was Mr. Raj Ratnam. He was Mr. Raj Ratnam. Then our second session was taken by Miss Sneha Makkad. She has shared us the experiences of and then we had life experiences of Mr. Kamal Kant Sharma, who is the leader of Delhi Private Nurses and Paramedical Association. So they have wonderfully gave the experiences related to gender. So how this idea came, I would like to thank IPH that we have tried for this. We have paying effort for the gender issues, why it arise from in nurses. Was it only occurred after the recruitment in AIMS 80-20 ratio, or gender issues are already in the this thing? So I would like to say our topic, today's topic is precarity of nurses in private hospitals, some critical observations. We are already aware that even we are facing gender issues in government setups or private setups everywhere in the nursing than males. So is it same happening? We are trying to find out all the things, all various opinions or various evidences from different departments or the different sectors, private sectors, public sectors, so that we'll be more aware about those things. So I would like to thank UNA also to coordinate for this. Then we'll move to the instructions for the participants. We have few instructions for the participant. You can please keep your videos and audios on mute so that conversations can occur properly. Then we have a question. We can put our question answers in the chat box during the presentation that could be answered later on after the presentations. Now, also you can write some comments, suggestions, or any other opinions how we can tackle those issues. So you can write on that also. We have two speakers for the day. Miss Maya. Miss Maya is there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So I would like to first introduce Miss Maya. She is an activist. She actively participates in the nurses activities, and she is also just
Bhavna, we are not able to hear you. Hello?
Just, yeah.
Okay.
So, Miss Maya basically teaches in Delhi University. She's a prominent social activist. She has been participating in the nursing movement and writing on the problems faced by nursing cadre, including the working on paper, nurses on ILO's Work Freedom Project. She has been publishing on India's disease monitoring system and frontline healthcare workers, gender and caste, and dynamics in the labor market and on the court labor laws. So I welcome Miss Maya. Please give some insights on the gender precarity of the nurses. Welcome, Miss Maya. Maya?
Thank you so much, Bhavna. Can you hear me? I thank UNA, I thank IAPH, I thank all the participants and the organizing team at large for giving me this opportunity to speak on the issues and concerns of private sector nursing cadre. And I'm grateful that today's meeting started with a moment of silence, because that's exactly the situation right now, where we are a society which is मतलब एक ऐसा समाज जिसमें इतनी गैर बराबरी है, खासकर कि कोने कोने में महिलाओं के साथ जो भयंकर शोषण होता है. Especially we are seeing the rise of sexual violence on women, and particularly women from vulnerable social backgrounds, economic backgrounds, bear even more of the burden and the brunt of this violence, of this exploitation and oppression. So it's a very serious and somber moment where one is having to meet like this. In fact, democratic and efforts to protest against such kind of things are also being crushed so brutally. And I think it's all the more makes us pay attention to all the things that need to change in the system, all the things that need to be addressed and exposed by those of us who are part of movements, who are part of collective efforts. I think we should seize the moment and call the spade a spade, expose the system for its inequality. So I think that's the purpose with which today I wanted to talk about the experiences, and also larger, not just experiences, because I think I'll leave that to Iris. Iris will speak more from the experiential aspect of how does a nurse function in a private hospital setup. I would of course bring in some experiences, but I will talk more about larger trends in the education market for nursing, and how that actually combines with or contributes to or reinforces, let's say, a very hierarchical, a very graded nursing labor market. So, I would just like to यहाँ से बात शुरू करना चाहूँगी. Is it okay if should I move between Hindi and English, or should I just keep it English? If I could get a sense of the audience, what would people be comfortable with? Should I speak in a mixture of Hindi and English, or just in English?
Both comfortable. As you wish, Maya.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. So I would just like to start immediately by saying that one's engagement in the trade union movement, working with and being part of various strikes that have emerged in the Delhi NCR region, in Haryana, etc. That one has observed these different struggles as from the point of view of a trade unionist, and also from the point of view of a women's rights activist. So I'm bringing a lot of that to your discussion today. And what one has noticed very clearly is that if you look at the wider section of nurses, and here of course agar hum kuch analytical articles or research ko bhi dekhein, there is a lot of research on the social profile of people who are opting for an occupation, for a job in the healthcare sector. So let me start from there itself, and I'll explain why. you see, it's also important to understand what is happening in terms of the private sector nurses and the discrimination and exploitation they're facing within a larger framework of how our healthcare system works. And I just like to pinpoint here that from one's experience in the trade union movement, we see these very clear lines, very rigid lines, clear demarcations that emerge. And it starts from the moment of education, actually, when people are applying and thinking about how they're going to train themselves or acquire certain skills through education to pick up jobs later on. So let me start with the education sector and what we're seeing. You see, in the country where we live, it's not like we have a very egalitarian or a very equal education system. In fact, we don't have a very equal education system. What is happening, in fact, is that if you look at the field of healthcare, it is the more affluent sections of our society who are able to send their children for medical college, okay, especially premium medical colleges, both private and public. Because they have the social capital, they have the resources to educate their children in the best schools and then give preparation to clear the competitive entrance exams for medical college. So you see, in terms of the social profile, it's a better off section of youth who actually enter into the training of what we call doctory. But if you go, if you widen the lens and you see who else is entering the field of healthcare, then you'll see that there is this, largish corpus of people, first initially more women, and now slowly more men as well, who are entering, nursing schools, nursing colleges. And here, you do see a much more, mixed composition, social composition of, people with predominantly, men and women from lower income families, okay? And sometimes even, not high caste, but in fact, middling and lower caste groups who are actually sending their children to nursing schools and nursing colleges. So in terms of a social profile also, we see that there is a trend towards not that affluent section, sending their children and making them opt for nursing. I'm not saying that this is the only trend out there. There are other trends, but what is the more mainstream trend that we see? So there is that. And of course, then below, the cadre of, nurses who register in nursing colleges and schools, then of course, another whole workforce altogether, auxiliary, nursing staff or nursing auxiliaries, who are again, from much more poorer family backgrounds. And many of them are not even, educated beyond class 12th. So, this is your segment, your workforce, a larger workforce of people involved in nursing. You have those who go for the BSc, course, either basic, post-basic, and you have those who opt for BSc General, not the BSc General, the diploma course. And then there are many, involved in other kinds of nursing jobs, who don't come with that training from an education point of view. They pick up skills on the job. And they're usually 12th class student, people who've come out of class 12 and then have taken up certain skills and have been employed in hospitals for cleaning tasks, etc. And this is the kind of workforce you see in hospitals, including private hospitals. Now, what I wanted to highlight by drawing your attention to this fact is that the kind of unequal access to the best medical colleges, the unequal access to education and the gradations within education then goes on to determine who picks up what kind of work, what kind of job in the healthcare system. But even if you focus just on nurses, because we're looking at nurses, here you see a further hierarchy working in the sense that there are two types of nursing colleges. Okay. There are the public nursing colleges and there are the private nursing colleges. And this is a fact, that we have seen in our country that, over the period of the 1980s, 1990s onwards, there has been a push towards allowing, government after government has allowed more and more private capital to enter the education market and the health services market, etc. And what has happened, therefore, is that, private players have not only set up big, small to big hospitals, but they've even set up nursing colleges. And in that sense, what we see is that there's a section of youth who pass out of class 12 and decide to opt for nursing because it's a technical course of either 3.5 to 4 years, and then it comes with a certain job guarantee. So people send their children, and as I said, predominantly lower income families opt to send their children into nursing, and there also the shortage of seats in the subsidized, state subsidized government nursing colleges results in a competition in where many nurse aspirants end up enrolling in private nursing colleges. And I think we know this because all of us come from this, field, this profession, that there's certain, many states, both in southern and in northern India, have really seen the growth, massive growth, what I call mushrooming of private nursing colleges. And state nursing councils and the Indian Nursing Council at various points of times, they have relaxed the norms for recognition of nursing colleges whenever there has been a pressure on the shortage of nurses. Then norms for nursing education have been relaxed. And it has resulted in even low grade nursing colleges proliferating, and they capture, of course, nurse aspirants and enroll them in their expensive degree programs. Now, the point that I want to make here is that there is already an experience of inequality that begins with your education itself. Which nursing college did you get into? Was it a state subsidized, government funded, properly recognized college with good placements, or was it a private, institution that you had to enroll yourself in? That moment, and that charts your future, that charts your terrain, and and I'll explain how. But before I go into that, let me contextualize a little bit more in one or two points this shift that happens from the 1990s. From the 1990s onwards, what happens is that you see the economy of India being increasingly opened up very fast to privatization. And the state begins to withdraw from regulation of health sector, education sector, broadly जिसको हम social sector कहते हैं. State धीरे अपना हाथ फेरने लगता है, funds या subsidies withdraw करने लगता है. और इसी संदर्भ में हम देखते हैं कि गवर्नमेंट के खुद के जो इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, the government's own nursing colleges, etc., they also begin to see certain change happening. Of course, the seats, never increase as much as the demand for the seats in government colleges is. And what you also see is that slowly, the government in the process of pushing through privatization gradually, even the new nursing institutions it's opening, the new nursing colleges it's been opening since the 2000s onwards, they have begun to introduce what is known as the self-financing mode. So, even if a new college, with government backing is open, it's functioning with this, where one of the degrees, nursing degrees, is self-financed, and one of the degrees is fully funded by the state. So those who are not very high on the cutoff, they are forced to, and because they don't get very high cutoff marks, because obviously they're coming perhaps from weaker schooling background, etc. So the people who actually need good teachers, the people who actually need more help, because they don't score that well, they are pushed into the self-financing mode degree or the self-financing mode institution, while those with perhaps better opportunities, better schooling, and better marks in the entrance get their chance in the fully funded, state-funded nursing program. Now, this is the kind of division that's playing itself out, and therefore you see that, in Kerala, for example, you have SIMET, SIMET, which is this, body that opened up 6 nursing colleges, if I'm not wrong, in Kerala in recent times. So this is the State Institute of Medical Education and Technology, and the 6 nursing colleges that open in Kerala, it has very low enrollment because the fee structure is very high. So, it's interesting that we are in a country that has a very heavy health, health burden, disease burden and need for healthcare. We need many more nurses and doctors. And whenever, new institutions and programs are being introduced by state and central government, it seems to be coming now increasingly in this self-financed mode. And of course, saath mein, at the same time, a lot of private capital, a lot of private players are being allowed to open their institutions for nursing education. Now, in this structure of, already a graded unequal education system, who's studying where then determines, who ends up getting what kind of job. Now, in that situation, what we're seeing in this interlocking of education market and the inequalities in the education access, then interlocks with your entry into the job market. So coming from more vulnerable, lower income family groups, men and women who have enrolled in a private nursing colleges, they generally take loans from family members or from a bank, and then there's a pressure to pay it back and to earn quickly. And it's in that context that because when they enter the job market, it's a very high competition, because in the government hospitals, there are limited vacancies that are advertised. Though there should be many more vacancies, though there should be many more people employed, the government has not been advertising enough jobs, and there's a competition to get in, and then there's this pressure overall to repay loans, to start earning and supporting your family that is invested in your education. And this then propels a large number of nurses. Okay, it is said that roughly 60 to 70,000 nurses are produced in India every year, a lot of them from the private sector. So a lot of them study in the private sector and are coming out and stepping into the job market. More than half of them end up actually, more than half, or easily more than half of them end up working as private hospital nurses. Okay, or as contractual nurses in government-funded hospitals. So this is the trend that we are seeing, and this has been a trend that's been around for some time now. And what I'd like to emphasize here is that under the pressure to earn, pay back loans, and also given the lack of job opportunities in the public sector, and fourth, even the recent recruitment rules of the central government, have been tweaked in 2016-17 in a way in which, it has been stipulated that you're coming from a GNM background, which is the diploma background. Then if you're applying for a government posting, nurse position, then you need to show minimum 1 year's work experience. So a lot of people actually have enrolled in the diploma, and then, there has been in the recent years this pressure to, pick up work experience and then apply for the government jobs to become eligible. And that is again through a law, through the systemic functioning of the system itself. You can see how, private hospitals are benefiting, because they have this nurses who are coming and desperately seeking, jobs and especially work experience, so that they can at least try for better opportunities a year or two down the line. And so, these kind of things work together, and it creates a very large private nurse and contractual nurse cadre in our health system. Now, Iris will, of course, speak in a lot of detail about the experiences on the ground within the hospital of, nurses in the private sector. I'll just flag a few points and then move on to my other main concerns as a trade union activist. If we look at the private hospitals, here again, there is a hierarchy. I will never say that there is only one kind of private hospital nurse, okay, or that there's only one kind of contractual nurse. No, this is the nature of your nursing labor market. Within your government hospitals, both central and state government hospitals, state government funded or central government funded, you see, of course, the permanently recruited staff, and you see the contractual nurses. If you go outside the public sector hospitals, then you will see the private sector hospitals, where there is a huge variation from 30 to 50 bed nursing homes to, hospital clinics where doctors just, have the facility to just have consultation with patients and not admit anyone, to, medium-sized private hospitals of 100 beds, to super specialty hospital chains. Okay, so you have a gradation in the nursing, in the hospital market itself, private hospital market. So of course, different sized hospitals will have different sized workforce of nurses who they're employing. And of course, there will be differences in the, there'll be some differences in the work conditions. So like in the work conditions in a hospital clinic, a work condition in a nursing home would be different from, the Apollo chain of hospitals, or the Medanta, chain of hospitals. So there will be that variation, which is why I'm saying, we also have to account for the hierarchy within even the private sector nursing cadre. But apart from this, the fact is that, the pandemic situation in particular has exposed the tremendous vulnerability of private nursing cadre and the contractual nurses in public hospitals. Because, a moment like this, when you had, the whole health system under so much, pressure, a moment like this clearly showed that, the elements of, the common elements of vulnerability, the common elements of exploitation, which exists across various private hospitals or nursing homes, and of course the exploitation and discrimination that exists inside public hospitals when it comes to contractual nurses. So, the common elements I'm going to focus on, even though there is this hierarchy between big and small private hospitals, the common elements are essentially, the fact that typically hospital managements, tend to, through their own unfair labor practices, they do tend to contribute to the high labor turnover in the private sector hospitals. What is a high labor turnover means? That means that, you will never per se find the same nurse working in the same hospital for a very long period of time. They change jobs, and that's very often because they themselves, because of low stagnant salaries that don't increase fast enough, they also trying to look for better opportunities abroad or in another hospital. And therefore, what happens is that, they constantly, if they get to know that somewhere else they're getting 2,000-3,000 rupees more, they will shift from that hospital where they're working to the new hospital where there's a slight pay revision or an increase. So, there's that. But more importantly, hospital managements themselves, through their unfair labor practices, want nurses to keep changing, and they want to keep bringing in new nurses because it helps them overall keep the salary structure low. Okay, so if you have a nurse who's been working for 4 or 5 years, that nurse is claimed to a salary enhancement and annual salary enhancement, is more. And the capacity of a nurse who's been working around in your institution for a longer time, the negotiating capacity of that nurse also increases. So they're actually uncomfortable. Private hospitals are uncomfortable, and so they will go and they will retrench. They will fire people on flimsy grounds, on weak grounds. They'll fire someone. They'll cut salaries, for people who desperately need leave, and denying them salaries. So when they are forced to take leave, they cut their salary. And these kind of practices just create a situation where nurses either leave in frustration, the institution they're working, or they're constantly looking for better, greener pastures. And therefore, always is an influx of newer nurses who are passing out of nursing college, filling those posts. So the wages generally don't revise. And therefore, if I would just, look at some of the statistics that have existed, before the first strike wave, the first major strike wave in Delhi NCR in 2010 to 2012, around that time, nurses were getting something as low as 4,000 to 6,000 rupees. That was the per month salary around 2009-10, when the strike wave started. To 4,000 to 6,000 rupees, many nurses were getting in Delhi NCR. And the process of the strike wave and other struggles, both within the courts, within the High Court, etc. Some cases went even up to Supreme Court, and otherwise also on the ground struggles. We saw that there was a revision in some salaries, structures, and as of today, when we are talking into 2020, recent studies, if you look at what the trend is, it's generally nurses are now in private sector hospitals, working between somewhere for a salary between 8 to 18,000 per month. Now, that seems to be a general trend. 8,000 vagera for, of course, people who've just entered the job market, are working in these small nursing homes, etc., up to, 15 to 18,000 in these big chain hospitals, like Apollo, etc. So this is the structure, but the point is that the salary structure is not revised regularly, and it's definitely not matching the living costs and it's definitely not suitable to the skill and the work extracted from the nursing cadre. And definitely, if you compare it to the salaries of nurses in the public sector, there's a huge disparity. Nurses on an average, the net salary of a staff nurse in a government sector hospital would be around 67 to 70,000 per month. Compare that to 15,000 to 18,000 at the most that many nurses in the private sector are getting. There's a huge gap. So, there's the question of, the retrenchment and unfair practices of the management that results in a stagnant salary structure. There is the fact that there's very little legal protection. And the strike waves have, बार-बार when जब भी strikes हुए हैं, ये बहुत बार देखने को मिला है that it's very easy for the management to, influence the labor commissioner, the district administration by saying that these nurses are troublemakers, they are affecting the patients, and because such little otherwise also labor's rights in India are being continuously undermined. Whenever there is any effort of collective action, it's very quickly criminalized. It's very quickly, declared as illegal. And so, when we have this large cadre of nurses in the private sector who literally are not being able to exercise their legal status, their legal rights in many times in the disputes and the dispute negotiations. Of course, I won't delve more on this. We had in the private sector a major issue which triggered the first major strike wave of the 2010-12 period, which is the bond system, and tying down nurses in private hospitals up to 2 to 3 years by taking all their original documents and then forcing them to pay if they wanted their documents returned to them. So the bond system was again a phenomena that existed and made life hell. Literally, treating many nurses or reducing many nurses to a kind of a system of bondage being tied to these private institutions. Of course, because, there was that strike wave in 2010, 11, 12, and then there were some nurses associations who took it to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court came up with a judgment declaring the bond system is illegal. But, as I said, many of these judgments really don't provide immediate relief unless there's a strong movement on the ground to get it enforced. And so, many times, because, new nurses kept coming into the sector, into the private sector hospitals, using their vulnerability, their new entry into the job market, the bond system persisted even after the Supreme Court judgment because, people are desperate to get jobs, they give their originals and they say like, fine, so we'll do what you want us to do, just give us our job. So this is one problem, and therefore the relief also that has come from Supreme Court judgments, from High Court cases, it's also been very piecemeal. It's never provided complete relief, and that's also because we have to think about the direction in which the movement, the trade union movement of nurses is going. Is that being able to create enough pressure to make sure that even the government's approach, even the court's decisions have any pro-nurse implementation to it or not. Hence, I'll just sum up this part of my the discussion and move on to the last component. This part of my discussion, I just sum up by saying, if you look typically, the common problem that private sector nurses are facing is very little scope for skill enhancement, very little scope for wage or salary enhancement, and therefore overall very limited options in terms of upward mobility. So there's a lot of stagnation which comes with career stagnation that comes with the private sector employment. I just like to point out an irony here, क्योंकि ये हमें इसके बारे में सोचना चाहिए that actually this is very skilled labor. Nursing labor is skilled work, and overall even the government keeps pointing to the point that there is a shortage of nurses in India, there's a shortage of doctors in India. So we should actually think that well, if there's a shortage and it's a skilled labor, then their price should go up. उनकी value actually market में और होनी चाहिए अगर ये shortage है ऐसे labor force की. परंतु it's the opposite way round. There's a shortage, of trained qualified nurses, and what is happening is that rather than them being able to negotiate and fix higher salaries, and especially salaries that get regularly revised, they are getting caught in a stagnant wage structure. So what I'd like to point out is that irony has to be explained, and I think the irony, one way in which I would like to approach the problem of why, despite a shortage of nurses in our country, and despite the need for many more nurses, this cadre of skilled workforce is not being able to uplift their wage condition, their working conditions, because there is need for much more much more strengthening of the struggles of nurses, be it in the public sector or nurses in the private sector, with the people's movement, and with the larger concern, the larger struggle for public healthcare system. I think it's very important that those alliances are strengthened and properly formed. I just like to say here that I think the problems that nurses are facing are symptomatic of the larger crisis in the public healthcare system, and the fact that our government is not investing enough in healthcare institutions, in research, in medication, in identifying the diseases that actually have a huge burden on our general population. So there is a formidable alliance that can be formed here, and a common struggle on the public healthcare system's revival and its strengthening. That I think one way, nurses especially nurses in the private sector, can really strengthen their claim on the system, their entitlement on the economic system, if they create that alliance with the broader people's movement for a proper funded healthcare. My last point here would be towards the fact that, of course, the problems that we are facing in the private sector as nurses also points to the fact that there are struggles. It's not as if nurses are bas haath pher liye, oh ab kuch nahi badal sakta. Of course they're not doing that. We are seeing, for a long time, we are seeing at least 15 to 20 years now, nurses in the private sector, there's been a churning, there's been a struggle, there's been efforts to unionize. Many new trade union formations have emerged, some which are looking beyond private hospital individual kind of struggles, but larger industry-wise, so private industry ko pura mobilize karna hai. So from the point of view of industry-wide struggles also, there are efforts that are emerging from the private sector nurses. But I just like to say that, the crisis still remains very much there, very much a challenge for us. And, it brings me to my concluding point, which is that, while there is this silver lining, while there's this hope that, nurses, especially the more vulnerable nurses in the private sector, are organizing themselves, they are now coming up with new trade union formations and efforts, still the trade unionism is sporadic, still it's fragmented. Even though there are efforts to try and forge like an industry-wide kind of coordination, the common demands, the larger coordinated struggles are still missing. They need to be much more strengthened. So, the struggles on common demands, more coordinated struggles rather than individual hospital-wide struggles, these are really the need of the hour. And I'd like to end with an example to explain this point better, why I'm saying this. Just imagine a situation that there's a train, okay, एक गाड़ी है, रेल गाड़ी है, और उस पे एक बहुत गुस्से वाला आदमी चढ़ता है, ठीक है, गुस्से वाला आदमी चढ़ता है, उस सबको धक्का वक्का देकर, ठीक है, सबको चुप करा के अपनी सीट ले लेता है, ठीक है. And in fact, he pushes off other passengers and he takes his seat and says, ये मेरा seat है, all right. And, the train starts moving, and this, the other passengers then ask, after some time they gain courage and they ask this very loud, confident man that, why are you, where are you going, by the way, sir? Which station do you have to get off? So the man very brusquely says, I have to go to Chennai. Okay. And everybody looks very alarmed and very surprised. Then one person, has some confidence and says, sir, if I may, actually you will never reach Chennai. So this man gets very angry. He said, what do you mean I will never reach Chennai? Of course I will reach Chennai. This train is going to Chennai. So the other passenger says, no, actually, sir, you will not reach Chennai because this train is going to Kolkata. So what I'm trying to say through this example is that, we may be taking certain efforts, we may be we may think that we're moving in a particular direction, but direction is very important. What is the direction of our collective effort? What is the direction of our movement, trade union movement right now? Are we assuming that we're in the particular direction that we want, or are we actually sitting in the wrong train and going in the wrong direction? So I just like to end by saying that it's very important for introspection on what mistakes we're making while organizing ourselves in the private sector. What mistakes are we making in terms of not forging stronger alliances between contractual nurses in the public sector, permanent nurses in the public sector, and the private sector nurses, also the fact that are we doing enough to ally with the larger people's movement for affordable public health care? If we're not, we're perhaps building militant movements that have the propensity or potential to die out very soon because of larger backing and coordination not being there. So I would just like to end and rest my case here. Thank you so much.
Bhavna,
Hello,
are you there?
Santosh? Santosh, my video is not you have to give me.
Yeah. I will do it. I will do that. Sorry. Where are you, man? Yeah, more. Okay, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Santosh. I'm delighted to know that people from other professions are also working for betterment of the nursing professionals. I'm very happy to listen from the Maya. I am happy that she is connecting the privatization of education in the larger frame and nurses in this webinar and their quality and its relation to the skill and job. It was very important to know your observation, especially nursing professionals and the gender aspect. We are grateful for your efforts, Maya. Thank you. Now I'll move to the next speaker, Miss Iris. Miss Iris James is a younger leader from India represented in the 72 World Health Assembly at Geneva held in the 16 to 22 May 2019. She was one of the 24th World Young Nursing Leaders selected across the globe. Her hard work and dedication to gain the knowledge and welcome, Miss Iris James.
Thank you, Ms. Bhavna, and thank you, Ms. Maya, for the wonderful session. Let me start the session on gender and nurses by telling the definition of gender by WHO. Gender refers to the characteristics of women and men, girls and boys that are socially constructed. So it is not something that is naturally occurring, it is socially constructed. And this includes norms, behaviors and roles associated with being a woman, a man, a girl or a boy, as well as relationships with each other. As a social construct, gender varies from society to society and can change over time. So gender is hierarchical and it produces inequalities that intersect with other social and economic inequalities. And gender-based discrimination intersects with other factors of discrimination such as ethnicity, socioeconomical status, disability, age, geographical location, gender identity, sexual orientation, among others. This is referred to as intersectionality. So let me focus on some gender entrenched roles. What are the gender entrenched roles? So nursing in India is female dominated, but females also face many challenges on the path to leadership. They are not able to make individual decisions about their career path. Many are not motivated in their families or even after marriage by their spouses for higher education and or leadership roles. They're just asked to maintain a job and to earn their living or contribute, or if and the next point is they are hugely responsible for household work and childcare and remain with less time for self-development. Some are unable to accept women as leaders and they face financial limitations and they need to consult before they even spend money. Male leaders of other professions, for example, doctors, they try to overpower female nurse leaders. And many women have accepted themselves as less equals and that their voices are not important because of the conditioning that they have received since childhood. Now, what are the challenges faced by the female nurses in the time of COVID? So, as nurses across the globe were planning with much fervor to celebrate 2020 as the International Year of the Nurse and Midwife, we were met with an unexpected challenge. And what was the challenge? Somewhere a deadly virus was spreading, widening its clutch and created an unprecedented backlash. Pandemic seemed like a part of history books, but our generation met with one in the 21st century. So the new frontline was created, and the nurse warriors across the globe geared up for a fight. This was a war without weapons or warfare to attain victory over the virus and the upheaval it created around us and within us also. Now, what is the challenge faced by female nurses, especially in COVID times? The nurses are unable to use the restrooms and change in time while they are menstruating. And pregnant nurses are not shifted to lighter units and sometimes work till term with the risk of contracting infections. Many pregnant nurses are forced to quit their jobs to avoid work stress and extreme fatigue. The nurses are facing difficulty in taking care of kids. They worry about the housework in the situation where even house helps are refusing to work. They are unable to spend quality time with their family, incidents where family members, neighbors get infected, and they blame the healthcare worker for, and also the nurse has the burden of the mental health, being isolated away from family or being isolated in the same house. So, what are the never ending challenges of private nurses? Among 84,600 nurses registered with the Delhi Nursing Council, for the example of Delhi, there are 75% are employed in the private sector. They feel lack of support from the nurses, nurse managers, and hospital management. Nurses are held responsible and answerable in every issue regarding the patient, be it the negligence of another member of the health team. Maybe another member is negligent, but the nurses are answerable. Their working conditions and struggles have remained the same since time immemorial and have also worsened in the times of COVID. They are paid 1/5 of salary of what a nurse earns in the government sector. And another important thing is the nurses' right to unionization and collective bargaining for their rights is prohibited in the private sector. Not many are motivated to participate in evidence-based research, and there are no leadership programs for nurses because a data in hand and research participation of nurses can be the future of nursing. Why only nurses? Nurses are the only one who are spending maximum time with individual patients among the pandemic. And when it comes to the remuneration and the salary and safety, they are considered last. Nurses end up feeling weak, isolated, and forced to work in inhuman conditions. Nurses are treated badly even after giving their best and risking their lives in the fight against COVID, and their contributions are still not being that much recognized. And when it comes to institutional support, nurses are not motivated to speak out for their rights and they lack support to bring out change. There's a very less culture of asking questions, or even the manager doesn't ask you, how are you? Or even appreciating or talking about appraisals is not appreciated. Approachability and celebrations, approachability is very less, and there are no celebrations, like which is a common practice which I have seen in other private offices. And many institutions are least bothered about issues faced by the nurses, their physical and mental health and safety, while serving to overcome the pandemic. Many of hospitals have faced mass resignations by employees since the pandemic crisis unfolded because they felt very exploited. Now, there are many mechanisms in place to uplift the women, and I laud the efforts of the Indian government and the nursing associations. But the solutions for the problem are, while we focus on the weaker section, the other section must not feel left behind. For example, the male nurses should also be equally represented, be it in jobs or being in leadership areas. Male nurses should also be equally represented, and each individual must feel that they have the equal opportunity for jobs, leadership roles, promotions, and is entitled to equal pay for equal work, regardless of whether they work in the government or the private sector. The need of the hour is a multiple criteria based evaluation system to identify individual competencies, insight, the ability to inspire, and skill set and the leadership qualities should be considered for higher education, for higher roles, for promotions, and for leadership roles. So everybody should not be an elephant and a fish and a snake should not all be used to measure on a same scale. Everybody should be individually evaluated and they're based on multiple criteria. Set up a nurses feedback system to employers. Nursing councils have to better understand and solve the challenges faced by the individual nurses. So what nurses can do? Nurses need to stay more united and support each other. There is a trend of fear in the private setup where there are so much of fear to raise their voices. Associations like UNA have been the support of the private nurses, and nurses have to keep the evidence-based data handy. Wherever you are, equip yourself in evidence-based research and data. Respect and appreciate each other. We need to appreciate the achievements of each other. We should invest in networking, that like the use of social media and being equipped in using social media handles like Twitter, and also sharing vital information and creating a sense of collective connectivity and collectivity, and equip in quality improvement. The essence of, we should know the essence of quality improvement and implement it wherever we are. We should talk more about patient care, patient experiences of our care. Like we should start blogging about how the patients are feeling about us, because we see in the media is in, especially in the pandemic situation, media is focusing more on the contribution of doctors, but it is actually the nurses who are with the patient 24/7. And because we are not speaking out, we need to speak out, we need to express what are our feelings and whatever is happening, and especially on social media handles. And we should recognize the role of young nurses and how much they can contribute and how they are the future of the profession, and we must empower young nurses. uh, and the majority does not mean empowered. Means if nurses are, the female nurses are the majority, that does not mean that they are empowered. We must work to raise the profile of nursing wherever we are. We should start, because what we dream of should reflect in policy, and we should put patients first, because the strength of the doctors is that they always speak in terms of patients and they put the patients first. So we should also think about, before we go for to fight for our demands, or we should always put patient safety and patients first. And another thing that will help us is interprofessional collaboration, how much we are able to collaborate and function closely with the other healthcare team members. So the examples of many situations that I faced is like the patients and relatives, then how they deal with the female nurses. One nurse told me that a patient's relative threatened her that because you are female, that's why I'm talking like this to you. Otherwise, I would have taught you, because female nurses are facing in the private sector a lot of abuse, and because patients, their relatives, they abuse the nurses a lot, and even the doctors, they in case of any failures on their part in front of the patients, they usually blame the nurses. So nurses should think about how we can change all these situations, and we have to collectively fight, because we cannot achieve anything alone. So I'm ending my part over here. Thank you.
Thank you, Iris. It was very shocking to hear about your critical observations, but simultaneously we are happy that to see the young nurses like you focusing on the issues, and so that problems can be solved. It is high time the nurses should raise the voice and find out the solutions for that. So now, before opening the session for the discussion, I would like to just summarize the points by the Miss Maya and Miss Iris. Miss Maya has raised some in the nurses in this webinar about the quality of the nursing and its relation to skill and job. Then she highlighted on the government regulation to divide the nurses based on education and their chance of getting job. The regulations are favorable to the private hospitals to exploit how the attrition rate is strategy to keep the low wages at the private hospital, brief history of the nurses struggle in the Delhi, and the lack of legal structure to safeguard the minimum wages. Then she highlighted the hospital administration using patient safety as the easy way to label the nurses strike as unethical rather than enhancing a basic salary to them. Then she raised a point on the bonding system and its legal outcome. And then I would like to share the points raised by the Miss Iris. these were some points like she said nurses are forced for the patient in the pandemic also, but salary is not being given. So they are not being recognized. Councils also need to participate in the issues. Social information is important. Then she also focused on the use of social media to showcase the nurses' care and their dedication. Then she has focused role of young nurses and need to empower. Then nurses to keep the patient care at the core, and then these issues of the nurses. Patient and their attenders exploit the nurses, and the failure of the doctor or any administration were also nurses are also make scapegoat for that. Then she has also mentioned that there are no leadership programs for the nurses. Then she also says like being a gender based, like female are dominant, female dominant profession, they are not allowed to ask the questions also. Then she said like young leaders should take efforts and interpersonal collaboration should be made. Now the desk is open for the discussion. So if anyone is having question, she or he can unmute himself or herself and can ask question directly to the speakers also. Now in the response also, when I go to the chat box, I can read Miss Praveena is writing, in the government sector, nursing school college is under DHS and not DMER. Therefore, no post and UGC scale salary. Any comments from speakers on this note? Miss Maya?
Yeah. Shall I come in here? Sorry for myself, Santosh.
Yeah. Hello, Santosh.
Yeah, Santosh.
Yeah, Maya, go ahead.
Yeah, Santosh, I was also looking at the chat box. There were one or two comments where I know that I have actually something concrete to say. So could I start with those?
Sure, ma'am.
Please.
Okay. So, there was a comment here that was, asking about the labor codes and, how does one look at the impact of the newly introduced labor codes and the whole question of nurses, especially private hospital nurses. So, I'd just like to say something about, labor codes in the context. You see, my academic work, my research in the university is actually on India's labor laws. I've traced actually the history of labor law here, which I wanted to share with you because it will help me explain better the current scenario in which we are placed. Now, what I want to highlight here is कि जब आप भारत Indian subcontinent का labor law history देखते हैं, तो actually in the late 19th century, the British was still in India. In the late 19th century, and up to the early 20th century, what had happened is that there was this push towards recognizing labor, and particularly collective labor, that means trade unions, etc., as legal entities. And slowly, by the late 19th, early 20th century, what had happened is that matters of contract, work contract, employer-employee contract, increasingly came under public authorities regulation, that means the state's regulation. And this के पीछे बहुत सारे कारण हैं, मैं बस एक कारण अभी आपको इंगित करना चाहूँगी, that labor movement was increasingly becoming something to reckon with, okay? And increasingly the 20th century, early 20th century, you see very militant labor movement in India, which is both against the British and against all conservative social forces. Now, in that context, finally, new kinds of labor laws come, and they existed roughly into the periods of what we could call the 1990s. So, from early 20th century up to the 1990s, a particular paradigm of labor law that had evolved, which recognized the contract of employer-employee as one which should be in the public domain, and that the public authority as a state should regulate it. So, as a third party, the state would be involved in the entire process of wage, work condition, stipulations, etc., which is what we call the tripartite system of industrial relations. Now, as you enter the 1990s and more recently, आज के संदर्भ में 21st century, what's happened is it's a jurisprudential shift. There's a whole change in the legal philosophy and the policy discourse, which is now increasingly arguing that work contract the logic of the contract between an employer and employee. It's no longer a public matter, it's a private matter. So it falls within the domain of private social relations. And therefore, increasingly what has happened is that, the kind of laws and the kind of amendments made to some very important pieces of legislation like the Industrial Disputes Act, the Trade Union Registration Act, etc., has been continuously happening since the 1990s. And even if we look at that very individual relation, so forget about trade unions, forget about the collective form of labor, if you look at a very individual relationship between one employer and one employee, even there you are seeing that in more recent times, there's this very strong assertion of, the employer-employee should figure it out. It's a private matter between them. And so the state is constantly withdrawing, and it's facilitating what I would say that within the same workplace, within the same hospital, you are actually facilitating with the state's withdrawal of the regulation of the contract. You're actually facilitating more and more kind of varied contracts. तो एक ही छत के अंदर कोई इस पोजीशन पे है, कोई इस पोजीशन पे, कोई इस पोजीशन पे, इसको ये पैकेज मिल रहा है, ये पैकेज मिल रहा है, पे काम सेम है. So it's the same work and different work arrangement, different work contract with literally no regulation, no standardization, no uniformity. So which is why this is what we're seeing, and hence all the more the larger connections need to be drawn. And I think the labor codes, as they've been currently passed by the government a few days back, they are actually going to further facilitate a process that started in the 1990s, where a large section of our workforce remained outside the law. Now even more of our workforce is going to stay outside the law. And there's going to be this constant assertion of this is a matter of private contract. State is not going to intervene. Labor department is not going to intervene. The contract dimension should be forged between the understanding of employer and employee. And this is a big danger. Please look at the fact that it's not only that the labor codes have been passed, but that they've already been enforced in piecemeal manner earlier. Laws have been amended prior to the labor codes. Conditions of work have been generally bad. Now they're going to worsen. Now, if you look at the nursing cadre, why am I saying the situation has already been bad? I mean, government अपने ही laws को बहुत बार अपने ही hospitals में लागू नहीं करता है. कहाँ है crèche? Where is there crèche in hospitals for the staff to bring their young children if they need to? Where is there proper facilities in place to allow for negotiation during disputes? There's also this whole push towards making many issues of gender that I'd like to, because I realize the topic is gender in nursing. Many issues relating to gender concerns of the workforce, they are very conveniently being isolated from the larger question of the work contract. So this whole issue of sexual harassment, very interesting. There was a separate law passed by the government that says in every workplace, including a hospital, there should be a anti-sexual harassment committee or an internal complaints committee. Nicely divesting and separating the issue of sexual harassment, very often caused due to vulnerable work conditions. They separated it and said, there'll be a separate committee that will look into that. और उसके members कौन होंगे? Nominated by the management. Okay, so there's not even an election by which the nurses can choose one representative, the doctors can choose their representative, the other cadres can send their representative. It's an employer or management nominated committee that will examine complaints of sexual harassment. So you've nicely isolated the question of certain gender inequalities in the workplace, and you're saying हम अलग से इसके लिए committee बिठाएंगे, उस पे investigate करेंगे, वो भी employer nominated. And up larger questions of work conditions in the hospital, just as unsafe work conditions like poor lighting, lack of other kind of safety measures in the workplace, को address नहीं करेंगे. So it's very, you create vulnerability in the workplace, but you divest it of its interconnections with sexual harassment, and you set up separate committees for it. So that's what it reinforces that logic of let the employee figure it out. Let cases of sexual harassment be figured out in the workplace between a committee constituted by the employer. So you empower the employer again over the workforce. So all these kind of dynamics are already in place. They're going to be strengthened by the labor code. So we have a lot to worry about. Similarly, the new education policy, passed again by this government. Many of these changes are being brought by this current government. New Education Policy 2020. Again, please note what it's stipulating with respect to technical or professional education, which would include nursing. On one hand, it is supportive of a lateral entry of nursing into doctor's positions or MBBS course, but it hasn't as such put out a formula of how that's going to happen. But please remember, this is the same policy framework that's promoting private institutions growth. That means there'll be more private colleges, more private medical colleges, and they will ultimately benefit from even a course which provides a lateral or bridge course that provides a lateral entry of nurses into the doctor's profession. So, they give something with one hand and they take it away from the other. So education will remain expensive for a majority of people, even in the professional fields of medicine, nursing, dentistry, etc., etc. So I just like us to, draw attention to the larger structures that we are fighting.
Bhavna, are you there?
Yeah.
Was I audible? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you are 100%
Yeah, you
audible.
are audible. Okay. The next, she has shared very insightfully, she has shared the labor codes and how the problems are going. And then next speaker, the next person is maybe Indira. She has said that may be useful to look the challenges and problems of unionization of nurses in private hospitals. What are the implications of new labor codes in this regard? And then any links between unionization and reluctance to the hire male nurses.
May I answer this question?
Sure, Iris.
There is in private sector, there is no that much reluctance to hire the male nurses, I have felt. But those who are qualified are usually hired because unionization is totally prohibited in private sector. But in the government sector, I feel many nurses have reported that they feel that because male nurses are active in the unionization and for their voice for their rights, so they are not that much motivated to hire male nurses. And some have also said that that is one of the reasons why this 80:20 reservation has been carried out. But there is no evidence for that. And the management has not also commented anything much on that. So this is just considered that there's a perception that this might be true because the male nurses are usually quite vocal and they're active in the leadership front. And they are perceived that they have less social obligations, like family obligations. So they are very much active. So which may be a negative perception about them.
So doesn't it happen in private sectors?
No, I don't think that much because unionization is totally prohibited in private sector. They have signed a clause that it is totally unionization and all such activities are prohibited. And the same perception usually exists, but privatization is not, unionization is not motivated in private sector at all.
No. Thank you, Iris.
Bhavna, I think Praveena has put a very good response here, which I'd like to comment to because it also helps me add on to what Iris has said about male nurses. See, Praveena has said here, as many nurses are female, they easily slip into the role of mother, etc., forgetting that they are professionals and it's a professional job and workplace. Totally, I agree. As a trade unionist, I know ki it's not just the management, like Iris said, the management tends to, especially in the public sector hospitals, tends to hesitate to hire male nurses. Though there are male nurses in AIIMS, in Safdarjung, in many hospitals. There is this debate actually that is going on even within trade union movement. There is a debate in terms of, and I've been party to some of the discussion. There's a hesitation about an enhanced entry of male nurses into the profession. And unfortunately, it seems to be the discomfort of many older nurses seems to be that, this profession is for women, okay? And many of us are not comfortable with that. As a trade unionist, I do not prefer this kind of gender essentialism ki ye kaam sirf aurat ke liye hai, ye profession sirf aurat ke liye hai. Because we have to remember that kind of perception is used to stigmatize nursing and to undervalue it in the healthcare market. So we should not actually be making that argument. It's something that we need to debate, we need to think about, because it is a professional skill job and both men and women due to circumstances in their life have entered this profession because it is seen as one that guarantees certain amount of employment. I think this is a debate that we need to look at more closely rather than taking very fixed sides, and especially not along the lines of, because women are mothers or nurturers or carers, they will automatically make better nurses. I don't think we should hold on to those arguments anymore. Because that would not serve the purpose of nursing itself and the growth of nursing as a profession.
Thank you, Ms. Maya. Now I would like to invite participants to share their views on, I would like, Praveena ma'am, can you please unmute yourself and say what about what you are writing in the chat box.
Good evening, everyone. I'm a nursing teacher from Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Nursing, Pune. And that is one college which is having a lot of male students also. So I have experienced teaching both of them. And many of my students have said that. And also it has been my observation, if you look at an average staff nurse, in the ward, they are like more than taking care of the patient, we are like taking care of the doctors. The junior doctor would come and say, Madam, sister, mera laptop please sambhal ke rakho. Sister, mera ye packet thoda sambhal ke rakho. You know, all these kind of things. So whom are we appointed there for? These kind of things, and that has been inculcated right from the beginning, and that sister is supposed to be very good because she is looking after the doctor's needs. So that is what has been my observation. So, and few other things what I have put in the chat box. So being a caring profession, we are caring, yes, but whom are we caring for? We are not caring for nurses. We are not caring for ourselves. We are not caring for a nursing profession.
True. We are here for patient care. I agree with Praveena ma'am. Maya, do you have any comments on that? Or Iris, speakers?
Of course, I would agree with Praveena ma'am that from the moment we enter nursing college, there is a certain amount of, perhaps an element of how nursing is projected to nursing students. Perhaps sometimes the seeds of, how they are supposed to behave in the workplace later on, the seeds are somewhere grown while the 3.5 or 4 year course is going on. There is that. But of course, it really gets consolidated in terms of the hierarchy between what the nurse's profession is and what the doctor's profession is. Gets consolidated in the workplace itself when the nurse steps in and has to work as part of a team in a ward, etc. And I would agree that there is a lot of undervaluation of nurses and their skills in the workplace. I think that as I said earlier in my talk, it starts from the difference or the differential access to education, the way the syllabi, everything is constructed vis-a-vis those who enter medicine and those who enter nursing. But in the workplace itself, I think there are these larger inequalities that are also larger problems that are working and creating a very hierarchical, very rigid relationship between doctors and nurses. And I think there again, the public health care system's role becomes very important. An overburdened healthcare system where you have fewer doctors, fewer nurses in a hospital than what is actually required, and a much larger patient intake, a much larger patient footfall, creates tensions, including gender inequality and gender harassment within teams of doctors and nurses. Because the more overworked you are, the more conflictual a relationship in the workplace, the more overburdened you are, the more tendency you have to treat your other in the workplace as someone who is, creating the problem for you, someone who is forcing you to do something, or someone who's not listening to you or not listening to your orders. So I think a lot of the tension and hierarchy and assertion of who is what
over the other is also created by an overburdened healthcare system. So that is all the more why we need to, address along our conditions in the workplace are also going to change when the healthcare system it changes, and improves for the better. People get what patients get what they really need. Nurses get what they really deserve, and so do the other cadres, other staff in the institution. So I think there's an overhauling of the system. It won't be just possible overnight with a few sensitive people or a few mindset changes. It requires much more structural change.
Bhavna, may I add on few points?
Sure.
So first, we have to understand, and nurses have to understand, and so has to prove to others that nursing is an independent profession, and we are. It is. We should. It is not the nurse's job to hand over the patient files or papers, continuation sheets to doctors. That is what was comprised of the main thing I was doing while I was working, is handing over continuation sheets to doctors. There should be a separate area where all things are approachable to everyone, all stationery is approachable to everyone, and the doctors usually have a final word for everything, and the patients have more of a trust based society, and the projection is that what doctors say is actually true, and they have the final say in everything. And the advantage that the doctors enjoy is that they are more patient, they project themselves as more patient centered, and whatever issues of theirs they will always adding on to the patients, they will say. And they are more research oriented, and their research funding is there is proper funding both in public and private sector hospitals for their research work, and also continuing nursing education of doctors is given importance. And doctors have a lot of unity is also there among them, and they also get a lot of support from the management, and they earn a lot of very high salaries irrespective of whether they are working in the government or private sector. And they also enjoy a lot of support from their Indian Medical Association. And when it comes to nurses, there are no standard operating procedures, or the nurses can't even prescribe the emergency medicines even after having more than 20 years experience in a particular department. And nurses are in when I was a student, I was asked to put the bed sheet in the doctor's duty room, to put the bed sheet on the bed, and things like doctors are coming and asking nurses, please arrange bed sheets and blankets for me to sleep, and they are openly blaming the patient in front of the patients, or maybe in front of us itself. They are telling their seniors that this happened all because of the nurses, because we have taken like an attitude that we are subordinate to them, but we have to fight for our profession, and that we are independent professional and we are not their assistants or their, we can help them, but the attitude of nurses as the universal carer or the should change. We are there for the patients and not there for to keep assisting the doctors for getting our work. That leads to a lot of burnout and stress and a lot of misunderstandings and the fight in the within the healthcare team. Thank you.
Thank you, Iris.
Bhavna, I have a question, shall I?
Sure, Santosh.
Iris, thanks for giving us insight, which I was waiting since long. Whatever you said at the just now, how nurses have been exploited from different parts of the health team, be it across from the doctors who are our colleagues, our patients, or other. How was the administrative response? For example, you said, so and so said to arrange these things. We are handing over to the your continuation report to the doctors. In that case, what is the administration role from the hospital? Is it nurse centric? It means only nurse can bring a change. If so, how can it be? Or else it's a hospital centric, where hospital is supposed to bring some which is not bringing they want to bring, the nurses are not ready to. Where do we, what are your experiences over that? Over to you. Thank you, Bhavna and Iris.
See, when I was working, I was not the person who used to keep sitting quiet in the corner, but I used to make critical observations, and I used to suggest to my seniors what are the ways to change. And I used to suggest, even in the time of pandemic, when the nurses were the last one to be handed over the PPE. And when I went to question, I was told the answer was that you are the bulk of the bulk of the employees are nurses. So nurses, they are manpower and they are costs. So nurses are considered as costs and not investments. There is no investment for us, and our views and our opinions is not considered as important and like how we can contribute. But that is not the case that what we see in the foreign countries. As much I have been interacting with the international level organizations, and I've taken many sessions for them, and in that also I can see that the point opinion of the nurses is very much considered. Nurses are blogging on the hospital sites, and the attitude of the hospital managements in our country is that they are more hospital centric and not nurse centric. Santosh, yes.
Thank you, Iris, for your experiences. Now, Miss Pravina is raising her hand. So, if she want to say anything, she can unmute herself.
Yeah, I was just telling that what are the nurses doing, like by and large. But very few hospitals, yes, they are working like professionals. If you look, like say, take the example of a doctor's round. The nurse is standing at the end, especially like in a private medical college hospital. That's what is my observation. And she is standing with one sanitizer bottle. Now, not in COVID times, this I'm talking about routines. So that if the doctor examines, she can give the sanitizer. And when foreigners and other people come, they were shocked to see that. Why are these girls doing this? Why are these nurses doing this? And when we try to say, no, that is what is expected. That is what the management tells them, and that is what is expected of them. And when it comes to, when you said doctors, patients also respect the doctors because the doctors know about the patient. The nurse should be standing right in the front if we are there for 24 hours, and we should be presenting our patients when the doctors come on round. That does not happen. So how would the patients respect us? How would we show the importance of nursing care to the public? So that is what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Pravina ma'am. Pravina ma'am, Indra ma'am has asked a question to you. Indra ma'am, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, so this whole gendered rules, to what extent nursing education itself, I think it has been partially answered, but just in case, um, uh, do we need any kind of reforms in nursing education also where, nurses, I mean, these hierarchies can be overcome, or even this gendered role that, they can be professionals in their own way. Will it help in any way?
No, of course, that is what nursing probably started as an apprenticeship course under the service sector. That is what I meant by it is under DHS, that is Department of Health Services. And like if you see the medical college, it is under the Department of Medical Education and Research. The nursing is not coming there. If in the universities also, it has been put under paramedical or under, like those kind of things. And then salary is one thing, but even otherwise, the hospital first, the duty first, and then your education. That kind of a feeling is still there in many places. Thankfully, not in my organization, but then in many places. So you see them early morning getting up, and it is a compulsorily hostel kind of a course, and students will go and work in the hospital like labor. They are not there for, we do not maintain their student status as a student, and later on that continues all their life. So it is, and teaching is not only what happens in the college or in the school. Many of the places people say the teachers will pamper the students. It is not pampering, it is just trying to make them, their spines little stronger. And in the ward also the learning occurs. Most of the learning in nursing happens in the clinical area. So what they see, what they observe, what they see the staff nurse doing, what they see the matron doing, what they see the ward in charge doing is also a big learning. And the administration never looks at the student nurse as a learner. They just look at them as an extra hand. And that is what they continue when they become the staff nurses also. So that is a very sad thing. That should stop somewhere.
So you have highlighted the role of education and gender and on nursing also. I thank you. And is there any other participant? Anyone? Ashish, I think he want to ask something. Ashish, can you unmute yourself?
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Background noise. Background noise.
Hello. I'm audible now.
Yeah, Ashish.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, Ashish.
I want to share one of my experiences working in NICU. That when I was been working in NICU for last 2 to 3 years, and a new medical student entered, and she was horribly handling the baby. When 15 days prior, I complained her regarding her handling with the administration of the NICU, the HOD, and the assistant professor. They neglected the thing. But after 15 days in my night shift, the same incidents occurred, and the next day the staff was blamed for that, the loss of the baby. And we were also fired from the newborn care unit. I'm working in the Director of Medical Education DMER unit, one of the public health unit in Maharashtra, and we were also fired from it. So I want to make a note on this, that the education which we take is of no use when we don't get any authority or power to say anything for their patient care also. So when we work for the quality of care, bodies, and but when it comes to the DMER medical colleges, they say that you are a nurse, you have been appointed as a nurse, and you have to work only for that. And you don't have to argue, or you don't have to talk for the patient safety. And we were being changed from the NICU unit, where we used to work passionately, to the medicine unit, where there is no baby and there is no use of our education of newborn care, which we were taking from last 3 years.
Thank you, Ashish. Ashish, please share your experience in the chat box, as we were not very clear with your voice. We'll be dealing with this thing and we'll be notifying you also. Now, I would request today's discussants.
speak?
Sure, Iris.
Things like this are happening because doctors are the main influencers in the hospital administration, be it in public sector or private sector. And the nursing managers are really a doll in their hands, and they don't have a voice, and they are just there filling up the seats, and they are not able to support the junior nurses when they raise an issue to them. They bring in an issue in front of them, because they are highly silenced by the management, and they are puppets in the hands of management. And in many government medical hospitals or in private hospitals, the doctors are the main administrators and decision makers, and nurses are not included in the decision making table or in any policy making regarding the patient care or the feedback or anything. So that is why such measures are happening, in which the recruitment rules are like this, or they are shifting transfer of nurses, and there is demotion, and such type of strict rules on nurses, and there is no change. And since many years we have been working like this, and we are not able to change our way of functioning. There are no investments for us for continuing our education or for research or equipping ourselves or having a voice for ourselves, especially in the private sector.
Thank you, Iris, for your experiences. Now, I would request today's discussant, Santosh, to share his points to discuss. Santosh?
Thank you, Bhavna. Thanks to both speakers, Maya and Iris, to share Maya to share the historical evidences of not only the how the privatization of education, let me say not privatization, commercialization of nursing education led to the poorer quality, and exploitation of the nursing students, not only students but teachers in totality, led to the that's called let me say unskilled health manpower in the nursing. Not only nursing, it's the same happening with the medical field also. That's what we heard from the medical faculty too and others too. Beyond that, she gave us a brief history of the development of the nursing struggles in the Delhi and how it has led to changes over the period of time. And but it is not enough there. The important thing what we have started to do this webinar series of webinar and nursing in gender was, which is rightly pointed out by many of us, and lastly also by Indira. Where does it start from? What is meant by gender? Iris write out what is meant by gender for WHO. Now the concept is the gender. When I in 2002 joined as a nursing student, I was just told to do 1, 2, 3, 4, not allowed to ask the question. That's the one. And second is, we have been trained to like, for example, being a male nurse, I should not do these many things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Being a female nurse, you are supposed to do 1, 2, 3. But there's so much of restrictions. One is the society from where we come from, gender, female coming, having a notion of you do this, you don't do this. Later on, when we join the hostels, there are so many restrictions put on the nursing student per se, as collectively, as parallel to the medical students had, let me say, female students had more freedom, they are more vocal and they raise the questions than nursing student itself. So there lies there. Gender is to answer the Indira's question. Gender, where should it start? I think we raised this question in 2018 in one of the bioethical conference in the St. John's Hospital, Bangalore, in the conference too, asking, we are not, nurses are not equally not taught about social studies, inequalities and gender, such kind of thing. And everybody raised the question and this, no, we are teaching. So keep it apart. So today's discussion was more about how gender and nursing is related. Gender and nursing. See, the question which we are still trying to answer in this series is, number one, as gender, from where it should be started to sensitize to the nurses. Is it at the education level, or is it at the institution level? If it is so, what is meant by gender to them? Now, the definition of that's one of the objectives. Second objective was the way the governments are bringing the regulation or regulation to structurally again to suppress the nursing cadre. Let me say in particular, because they already destroyed the health manpower cadre, stating that they are no more to be recruited by the government of India. They have to be recruited on third party. Now it is the same situation for the paramedical colleagues who have been very less in number. That's why they cannot. They are not able to mobilize themselves, form the union. They have been now outsourced, are taken on contractual basis in many of the hospitals. Now the chunk is nurses. If anyone can fight against the health system for better quality of care, is only nurses. Number one, because they are larger in number. Number two, they have the right to speak. They know what's happening in the system. So now, how to make them how to make them not to raise the voices. That's one way. What Maya told about this regulation of having compulsory 1.5 year. It was 2 years for after GNM, 1 year for BSc to get the government job, so that private can exploit them. The background was that the quality of nursing educators are the quality of nursing newer nurses coming is poor. But where is the problem in the nursing education system, which is what That is what highlighted by Maya. Instead of correcting the education system, which is commercialized and given handed over to where the government has washed its hands, and many of us are happy with that because some of them they see the visible the short means short-sightedness benefits, but long-sightedness we for long run we have a lot of we lose a lot of things. So that's a one way they are instead of finding the solutions to the problems, they are trying to create the problems, bringing out such type of regulations. Number one. Now, second regulation is when the men started to come into nursing, which is easily said by first and all our pre-session speakers so far, started by Registrar of Tamil Nadu and followed by both of the speakers. And now, males have come out to the in the field, and as rightly said, this is the point to note. Gender, males have the right in the society. I don't know, it's a given right. It's a given right. It should not be. But females, if they vocalize or say something, ye dekho, ye ladki aisi hai, they try to label the woman, a girl who is coming and speaking out. Where the same male are in the society does it, he is not done the labeling. That the societal reason is there. With that societal reason, male nurses came into the force after 2002, after privatization of nursing education. They started the protest. I am telling it's a private hospital. In government hospital, we have evidences of taking women as a leadership, and I'm not. We are respecting that, but in the private hospital, in that rigid manner, what Iris said, what Maya shared her field experiences, that women are not allowed to come. For example, Bhavna today, she came out after the duty. She was in the morning shift. She came out and she immediately sat on the discuss. Now, how she has been treated in her own hospital, do a small change in a emergency unit was itself is a bigger story. So here, what is important for us next day? That's what I was telling. Where to start the gender sensitization? Number one, locate the problem and think broadly. With such kind of regulation, men and women, why 20-80%? If they able to bring this, and then they can control the male nurses in the future. Leave apart that. Third is where the men should work, where women should work. They say it's a comfort of a patient. Let me. We need to define the comfort. Whose comfort? Who said that comfort for whom? And if it is comfort for having a female, let me use this as a case as a statement, which is not mine. If female nurses are more comfortable to give the care, then what about the doctors? What about the other health workers? Are they also supposed to be females? In this kind of where there's no logic of intervening, the sex-based, biological sex-based, biological gender-based intervention to cut short the voices of the nurses has to be looked upon in larger framework. That is framework of gender and framework of a society. So these were the two of the. Now we will continue this series with taking down. One is example of the nurses, how they are working in the experiences, and example of the nurses working in a so-called maternity room. Within the labor room, what women experiences are, what nurses experiences are, and is it really the gender matters over there? The amount of the care, the type of the care you give, that matters there. So these are the this is the which we are taking up in the future. But to this, related to this webinar, I would like to thank again Maya for bringing out the points, and Iris to share her experiences, and all the participants who shared their experiences are those who raised the question. With this, I hand over to Bhavna. Thank you, Bhavna.
Thank you, Santosh, for your insights. As you said my name, so I would like to share whenever even a female takes a leader's role, so he or she gets support. So you should take the leader's role, but you should know the things and you should be doing your duties properly also. Then now on the context of gender-based webinar series, now I would say like on this we'll be writing a report and analysis will be done on the basis of experiences, and then we invite all the participants to showcase their significant experiences and evidences and related to gender dimensions, challenges and suggestions also they can provide us so that we can do the needful in the future. Thank you to the speakers, to the discussant Santosh, and to all the participants. Thank you all of you. We see you to the next meeting.
Shall I
Santosh?
intervene,
Yeah.
Bhavana, for a moment?
Sure, Santosh.
Yeah, I request both the speakers to give a concludatory remarks of this remarks. Over to you, Maya and Aries. Then we can stop. Maya, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Maya.
Well, I think more or less I said what I needed to say, and you have summed up what I was trying to share with all of you pretty well. I would just like to say that, or re-emphasize that there are connections that, you know, the nurses movement needs to make, connections between an unequal access to education, the nature of, you know, how nurses are trained when they're in nursing colleges, and then ultimately how a certain kind of education, how certain inequality in terms of who goes to a private nursing college and who goes to a government nursing college, how all that plays itself out in the workplace when it comes to the job market. So there are very close connections that we as nurses, especially in the movement, need to see and recognize between the education market and a hierarchical, segmented labor market for nursing. And we need to see how certain, you know, inequalities and hierarchies are constantly getting reinforced, and they in fact are even affecting our trade unionism. It's even affecting the direction or nature of our trade unionism. So we need to therefore keep thinking about our strategy and the direction in which we are taking our efforts and our struggles. And one important direction would be to strengthen, as I keep saying, you know, the struggle on common demands. For example, common demand that would help us rise above more individual or individuated hospital-wise struggles would be a demand like a wage board for this industry, the hospital private sector. Many other such demands are important to now mobilize. Then, you know, forging a strong alliance through our own struggles and, you know, connecting with the demands of people, the common masses, for better public health care. That is also something that the nursing movement currently needs to invest in. Because if we want more job opportunities and better job opportunities, but it means we need more public funded hospitals, we need more public funded government colleges for nursing, etc. So who else is demanding that? The vulnerable, the socially and economically vulnerable sections of our society. So we need to forge our alliance with the people's movement for better public healthcare facilities. And I think the pandemic has exposed the terrible weakness of our public healthcare system, how we just brought one disease into singular prominence and neglected so many other parallel epidemics and diseases with much higher basic reproduction value, much more contagious population are still existing, but people are still not getting access to healthcare with only certain, diseases like COVID getting prominence. So, you know, our healthcare system, and then what happened to nurses during the pandemic. Forget the public sector, nurses, of course, they also had huge issues, how they were treated and how they were brought in for their services during the pandemic. But in the private sector, the way nurses struggled on a daily basis with heavy workloads, not being able to get any kind of leave, not getting proper protective gear, and very important, forget all of that. No pandemic allowance for nurses in private hospitals. There were strikes in Primus Hospital, Chanakyapuri, etc., because nurses were just so afraid that they were not getting protective gear. There was no sign of a salary hike during these intensive work regimes for the pandemic. And, I just think that moment should be awakening for us in terms of how much more formidable organization we need on the ground, because after a point of time, relief from the courts, now and then some kind of piecemeal measure by the state government or the central government is not going to be enough, because enforcement lies with the collective, and the collective needs to be much stronger, much more coordinated. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. Iris? Miss Iris? I think Miss Iris is not connected with us now. So I would like to just end up with the thanks comments to the IAPH for taking the efforts to solve these issues, so that if we'll be discussing the problems so that we can solve the issues also. Then I would like to thank UNA for providing the Zoom platform for us. And then I would like to thank both speakers, Miss Maya and Miss Iris, for the insightful observations. I would also like to thank the participant for the keen interest they have shown, and I would also invite their significant experiences and evidences related to gender dimension, challenges, and suggestions also. Kindly write to us on the website available in the chat box. Thank you all. Thank you, Santosh.
Thank you.